Hello and welcome to EduSathi's lecture on bar graphs. Now this is a topic in data interpretation, and in this lecture we'll be discussing the various type of bar graphs, how the data is actually represented using vertical bar graphs or horizontal bar graphs. But before looking at this lecture, make sure that you've gone through the introductory video in data interpretation so that you have more clarity, because I'll be straight away taking concepts from that introductory lecture and putting in this lecture while I solve questions. So let's begin. Data representation. So how do we represent data in bar graphs? Bar graphs are also known as a column chart and is a very common way of representing the data in the form of bars. Bars are generally vertical. So let's look at this sample depiction here. Annual sales of some XYZ company are shown from the year 2011 to 2015. So let's see what the y-axis says here. Number of products sold in thousands. So this axis shows the number of products. For example, it shows an 800 here. So this actually means 800,000 products. So this line shows 800,000 or 8 lakh products sold. And the x-axis here shows the year. So I have 2011, 2012, 13, 14 and 15. Take care of this star mark here. This shows figures for 2015 are estimated or projected numbers. One thing you need to note in these kind of graphs is that only the height of the graph matters and not the width. So if I have to decode this data, it means that this product A in the year 2014, this blue line here, sold approximately 580,000 products. So we had 580,000 products for this product A. Now you just have to apply a little bit of your imagination here, since this entire height is for 200 products, so this is very close to 600. So randomly I took a number 580. Similarly, you can decode any other data here. For example, I want to know how many products for this product C, or how many units of this product C was sold in 2012. So in 2012 I have this green line representing product C, and this is almost midway. So this is a 500 mark. So it means that in 2012, 500,000 products or units of product C were sold. So this was the first type of representation. Now the same data can also be shown using horizontal bars. So in this case, the y-axis becomes the years, which was the x-axis earlier, and the x-axis becomes the number of products sold. So this is also easy to decode. For example, I want to find out how many units of product B were sold in the year, let's say 2012. So in 2012, I have B here, and this is the line. This again points out to somewhere near 580,000. This is simple. So either we can have vertical bars or horizontal bars. Let's move further. There's another kind of bar graph which is known as the cumulative bar graph. Now in this bar graph, total sales for each year are represented pictorially by stacking the bars of corresponding types. So in the year 2011, the total number of products sold in thousands was about 1520, let's say 1520, and obviously these 1000 to follow. Or you can take this as not 1520, you can take this as 1600,000 products, because if you look at this space here, this space represents a 500,000 product gap. So this is about 1/5 of this height, so I can take simply 1600,000 products. Now this gives me the total number of products sold in 2011. Let's check if I want to know the number of products or the number of units of this product A sold in 2011. So what I'll do is I'll only look at this height here. So this gives me 500,000 for product A. Similarly, if I have to look for product B, I'll have to look at this height. So this height is from 500 here till about 1100 here. So this gives me 1100 minus 500, or 600,000 products of this type B. Similarly, if you want to look at how many products for C was sold in the year 2014, let's say, so you look at this green bar here and you note this height. So this is how much? 1050 approximately, because this is half of 1/5. So it starts from 1050 and ends at 1600. So if you subtract this, 450,000 units of product C were sold in this year 2014. So all you need to take care here is that this entire height represents the total number of units sold, and these colored regions give you the individual units of products. I hope this is clear. Let's move on to another type of graphical description or representation, which is percentage cumulative bar graph. So in this, what is given is you'll find 100% here. So the total sales obviously for a year is 100%. Now how much was the sale of product A in the year 2011? So you just need to take note here. So this is approximately in the middle, so this gives me a 30%. So out of this 100%, 30% was for product A. Now in this kind of questions, you'll be given what was the total units sold in a particular year. For example, in 2011, they tell you that a total of 500,000 products were sold. In 2012, a total of 700,000 products were sold, and in 2013, let's say 800,000 products were sold. So if now they ask you how much did product A sell in 2011, I know it was 30% of the total, so it means 30% of this 500. So 500 into 30 by 100, this gives me 150,000 products for this type A. So similarly, you can calculate for any product. For example, let's take one more example for product B in the year 2012. So if you look here, this is approximately 25%, and this is let's take it to be 70%. So you'll have to use a little bit of approximation here. So this gives me that 45% of product B was sold in, so I write 45 product B in 2012. So in terms of quantity, how much did it sell? 45 divided by 100 multiplied by the total products sold in 2012, which is 700. So you can calculate this, and this comes out to be 315,000 products for this type B. So this was another way of representing data. So let's move on to the first question set here. We've already discussed how data is depicted using bar graphs. So let's check these questions. Refer to the following bar chart and answer the questions that follow. So we have a project exports, and we have given values in rupees crore. So these must be the values, and we have different years, 1984 till 1988, and these values are given here. So these must be the values of exports in crores. So the first thing you do after looking at the question is try to understand what does the graph tell us. Let's look at the first question. What is the average value of the contract secured during the years shown in the diagram? So this is pretty easy. You just need to add all of them. 105 plus 67 plus 141 plus 143.9 plus 65. When you add all these values, you just divide them by 5, since we have 5 years, and you'll get the average value. So the correct answer here would be the A option. What I suggest you is, before you see my solution to the question, you should pause the video, try on your own, and then look at the answers. Let's look at the next question. So pause this video for a second, read the question, and try solving on your own. then you can resume the video. So compared to the performance in 1985, that is taking it as the base, what can you say about the performances in the year 84, 85, 86, 87, 88 respectively in percentage terms? What does this question exactly means is, if 67 was taken as the base, let's say this base is 100, then how would the other values here change? Like what would be 105, 100 and 100.5, 141, 143.9 and 65? So taking this as the base, you need to recalculate all the other values. Instead of solving, I'll tell you a method in which you don't do one calculation and you get the answer very easily. Now if you carefully look, in 1985 the project exports were 67 crores, and in 1988 they were 65 crores. So the 1988 is the only year when the project exports are less than in 1985. So from the answer options, obviously if this is 100, 1988 value should be less than 100, something less than 100. So let's check the answer options. For 88, this is 97, so this can be an option. 65, again this can be an option. Then I have 100, this cannot be the option, because if this is 100, it means that this value is not 65 but 67, because we're talking in relative terms. And option D, again we have 68, so this also can be one of the options, the correct options. So what we've done is we negated one option till now, which is the option C. Now let's look at this option again, option B. Here I have a 67 for the year 1986, which is incorrect, because 1986 the contracts secured were worth rupees 141 crores and the base is 67. So this has to be 141 by 67, which is something greater than 1. So this cannot be 67. This has to be something greater than 100. So I negate the B option as well. Now I am left with only two options, A and D. Now if you carefully look, 65 and 67 are very close to each other. So this percentage, if you calculate 65 divided by 67, has to be something very close to 100%. Like it should be something like 99% or 98%. It cannot be less than that. Whereas here in this D option, I have 68. This difference is not that far, 65 and 67. So the correct option is the A part here, since I have 97% for 1988, 100 for this base year, 150 for 1984, and so on. So without making even one calculation, I'm able to guess the right answer. Let's look at the third question. Which is the year in which the highest percentage decline is seen in value of the contract secured compared to the preceding year? So let's consider 1985. Yes, there has been a drop. So 1985 can be an answer option. 1986 cannot be an answer option, because here the contracts secured have increased. Similarly, 1987 also cannot be the answer option, because here also the contracts secured have increased. 1988 can be an option, because here again the contracts secured have decreased. So I am left with two probable answers, 1985 or 1988. Now if you carefully look here, there is roughly a decrease of 50%, because if instead of 143 I take it as 140, and this 65 I take as 70, so a drop of 70 over 140 is 50%. So this is something more than 50%. Whereas in this case in 1985 there is just a drop of 33 on 100, which is nothing but a 33% decrease. So just by looking at the figures, I can simply mark the answer as 1988. So now let's look at the question set 2 here. Study the graph below and answer the questions. So we have a graph here, and we have investments, which is represented by this green graph or the green bar. We have net current assets represented by this red bar, and net fixed assets by this blue bar. Now it is written that total assets are defined as the sum of all these three. So in other words, this entire height will show me the total assets for the year 1993. So let's read the first question now. What is the approximate simple annual growth rate or SAGR of the total assets from 1990 and 1993? So in 1993, I have total assets of 30, which is nothing but the length of this bar, and in 1990, this is 22. So the total assets have grown from 22 till 30. So what is the formula for growth rate? 30 minus 22, which is the final value minus the initial value, divided by the initial value, which is 22 multiplied by 100. So this gives me 8 by 22 into 100, or a 36%. But this is not the answer, because this is the growth from 1990 to 93, and we want the simple annual growth rate. So by the formula we did in the first lecture on DI, we'll divide this 36% by 3, which are the number of periods from 1990 to 1993. So 36% divided by 3 gives us 12% as the simple annual growth rate. Let's look at the next question here. In any two consecutive years, the growth rate is lowest for. So whenever I have a lowest growth rate, the first thing I'll check is if there is some of the investments or net current assets or net fixed assets which are showing a decrease over the year. So that would be a negative growth rate. So let's look here at investments first. I have investments 2 in this year 1990, and they reduced to 1 in the year 1991. Post that they increase. So because this value is again 2 and this value is somewhere near 4. Now why I'm writing this? Because from 25 to 30 I can draw easily 4 lines. So this will represent a 26, a 27, a 28, 29, and then 30. So we have divided this space into 5 parts of 1 each. So if you see from 1990 to 1991, the investments reduced from 2 to 1. So what is the decrease? We have the final value, which is 1, minus 2, which is the initial value. So this is the final value minus initial value, divided by the initial value 2 multiplied by 100. So this gives me a minus 50%, or a 50% decrease. The minus sign shows us that it's a decrease. So what is the answer here? Investments. If you try for other investment, other net current assets or fixed assets or total assets also, you will not get this figure 50%. This is the highest negative growth rate. Let's look at the next question. Between 1991 and 1992, so I have 1991 here and 1992 here, the highest growth rate was seen for. As I see, total assets cannot be the answer because total assets remained same in this period. Investments were 1 in this 1991 period and 2 for this 1992 period. So there was a 100% increase. How did I get 100%? I get 2, which is a final value, minus 1 initial value, divided by the initial value, which is 1, into 100. So this gives me a 100%. Let's check for net current assets. Net current assets are this red bar. Obviously, we do not see a 100% increase because they are more or less the same. And when we check the net fixed assets, so they are also more or less the same. So obviously, investments have shown the maximum growth rate, which is of 100%. Let's look at the next question here. The only item which has not shown a negative growth in every year between 1990 and 1993. Again, let's check the total assets first. So total assets show an increase here. Here there is no increase and no decrease, and again an increase. What is the question? Which has not shown a negative growth rate. So D part is the answer. If you check for all these three, you'll find at least 1 year wherein they have shown a negative growth rate or a decrease. Let's try another set on bar graphs. Number of engineering students in hundreds, so this is important, at institutions of different kinds are given. So I have this blue for private engineering college, the red one for government engineering college, the green one for regional engineering colleges, and this purple one for IITS. And we have the number of students here, which are given in hundreds, and the years on the x-axis. Let's look at the first question. What was the total number of engineering students in 1989 and 90? So for this year, I want to find out the total number of students. So if I count, for private colleges, I have 180 students, because this bar is just below the 200 bar, so I can take it as 180. The government engineering colleges have 130, the regional have 70, the IITS have 40, so the total comes out to be 420. Now this is subject to your discretion. Like for example, somebody can take 118, not 180 but something like 175, here something like 125, but you'll find a close enough answer. It is better that you take numbers ending with 0. So I have 420 as the total number of students, but I'll multiply this by 100 because all these numbers are in hundreds. So what is my final answer? 42,000. So D part here is the answer. The growth rate in the students of government engineering colleges compared to that of private engineering colleges between 88-89 and 89-90. So I have to consider these 2 years, and I have to consider government colleges, which are shown by this red graph, and the private engineering colleges, which are shown by this blue graph. So let us first check for private engineering colleges. So in 1989 to 90, this is somewhere near 180. So this was 180. This is the final value minus the initial value for the year 1988 and 89. That is somewhere near 120. So this is the initial value divided by the initial value, which is 120 into 100. So this is the growth rate for the 2 years. So this gives me 60 by 120 into 100, or this is somewhere close to a 50%. Now let's check for government engineering colleges. So this red graph here, now this graph here, the final value for 1989 and 1990 is somewhere close to 120. So I have the final value minus the initial value, this is somewhere close to 80, divided by the initial value, which is again 80, into 100. So this gives me 40 by 80 into 100, which is again a 50%. So for both the private and the government engineering colleges, the growth rate is same. So the correct option is the C part here. Let's move on to the next question. The total number of engineering students in 1991-92, assuming a 10% reduction in the number of students over the previous year. So I know that these are the number of students for the year 1990-91, and for the next year I will just multiply this by 0.9 and I'll get the answer for the number of students for the year 91-92. So let's count the number of students for this year first. So I have, for private colleges I have 250, government 130, regional 100, and IITS 80. So this gives me a total of 560 students multiplied by 100, because all these numbers are in hundreds as mentioned here. So for 1991, the total number of students are 56,000. So this is for 90 and 91. For 91-92, since there's a 10% reduction, so the multiplying factor becomes 0.9. I multiply this by 0.9 and this gives me as the answer as 50,400. So none of the option matches, so the correct answer is none of these. If you're wondering why I multiplied by 0.9, you can also solve this by another method, which is nothing but 56,000 minus 10% of 56,000, as there's a 10% reduction. When you solve this, you'll get the same answer. So let's do this last question for set 3. In 1990-91, what percentage of engineering students were studying at IITs? So again, I draw this table. Now the total number of students were 560, obviously into 100, and the number of students studying in IITs was 80 into 100. So I want to calculate the percentage. So I'll do 80 divided by 560. These hundreds will cancel out in the numerator and denominator, multiplied by 100. So this gives me 1 by 7 into 100, which is nothing but 14.28%. So the nearest option here is 14, the C part. Let's look at the fourth set in bar graphs. Study the following chart carefully and answer. Failure rates of electronic components, is given. So we have picture tubes, signal devices, capacitors, integrated circuits, printed circuit boards, hybrid microcircuits. So these are the electronic components, and the number of failures per thousand is given here. So picture tubes fail for 15 times per thousand, signal devices fail 16 times per thousand, capacitors fail 20 times per thousand, and so on. So this is pretty easy. Let's look at the questions. From the failure data of electronic components presented here, which statement is true? Integrated circuits and printed circuit boards are more reliable. So we have integrated circuits here and printed circuit boards here, which are more reliable. This is incorrect. Why? Because we have something like picture tubes which failed only 15 times per thousand, more reliable than any other electronic component. So obviously these are not more reliable than picture tubes. Let's look at the second statement. Capacitors are more reliable than picture tubes. This is also incorrect because capacitors fail 20 times per thousand, whereas picture tubes fail only 15 times per thousand. Higher number of component failures is likely to be due to picture tubes. This is also incorrect because picture tubes here is a more reliable component than any of the rest. Let's look at the last option. The least reliable component is hybrid microcircuits. This is incorrect. Sorry, this is correct. Why? Because hybrid microcircuits fail 40 times a thousand, which is higher than any of the failure rates for the other components. Let's look at the second question in the set. Which of the following components has a failure rate of 25% more than signal devices? So I have signal devices here and they fail 16 times per thousand. So we need to calculate 16 plus 25 by 100 of 16. This is nothing but 16 into 1.25, which gives me 20 failures per thousand. And I know that capacitors have 20 failures per thousand. So the correct option here is the B part. So the third question for the set. Lowest priority for investing in any changes or additions to the component manufacturing units in the company's investment plans may be given to the following. Now I will give lowest priority in checking the components which fail the least. Something which is more reliable means it fails least. So what we need to find out is which are the components that fail the least. We have printed circuit boards and hybrid microcircuits. So these are the most unreliable components because they have high failure rates. So this first option is incorrect. Capacitors and integrated circuits, these are better than the rest of the two, printed circuit boards and hybrid microcircuits, but not the best still. So this option also cancels out. Picture tubes and signal devices, yes, this is the correct option because these are the two devices which fail the least per thousand. So my correct option here is the C part. Let's look at the fourth question for the set. For the equipments using integrated circuit boards 400, capacitors 240 and printed circuit boards 120 to run with a maximum downtime, how many spares should be kept in the store respectively? So I know that integrated circuit boards fail 30 times per 1000. So I'll write 30 by 1000, and if I have 400 multiplied by 400, so this is simply unitary method. They fail 30 times in 1000, so in how many times will they fail in 400? So this gives me 12. So I need to have 12 spare integrated circuits so that my processes keep on running smoothly. Similarly for capacitors I have this 20 here. So capacitors fail 20 times in 1000. So they will fail 20 by 1000 multiplied by 240. If we have to calculate how many times will they fail in 240, so this gives me a 4.8, or I can approximately take this as a 5. Similarly, I need to calculate for printed circuit boards. So they fail 33 times in 1000. So I have 33 by 1000 multiplied by 120. This will give me approximately 3.96 or 4. So if I have a process which involves 400 integrated circuit boards, 240 capacitors, and 120 circuit boards, I need 12, 5 and 4, this B option here, as spare so that my processes don't stop. This was the only question in this set which required a little bit of logic and calculation. So let's look at this last set in bar graphs. Answer the question on the basis of the information given below. The following bar graph gives the production, exports and per capita consumption of rice in a country A for the 5 years from 2006 to 2010. So the blue lines show us the production in million kg, the green graphs, the green bars show the per capita consumption in kg, and the red bars tell us the exports in million per kg. Let's look at what information is provided to us below the table. Consumption is equal to production minus exports, and per capita consumption is defined as consumption divided by the population. So pretty simple bar graph here. So let's move to the questions. In which year was the percentage increase in the consumption of rice over the previous year the highest? So this is a very calculative intensive question. First we need to find out the consumption in each of the years. We are given the formula. So what we'll do is production minus exports. So for 2006 it is equal to 186.5 minus 114. Similarly for 2007 it is equal to 202 minus 114. So I've written the consumptions here. So for 2006 it is 186.5 minus 114, that gives us 72.5. For 2007 it's 202 minus 114, this gives us 88, and so on for the rest of the years. But what we have to calculate is the growth rate, the increase in the consumption. So as we discussed the formula in the basics lecture of DI, what is going to be the percentage change for 2007? It would be 88 minus 72.5. So this is the final value minus the initial value divided by the initial value, which is 72.5, and then we multiply this by 100. So you need to calculate this for all these years given in the answer options, except for this year 2009, because here we see there's a decrease from 108, the consumption has reduced to 105. So we don't need to calculate for this year 2009. You can simply strike off this option, but for the rest of the years we need to calculate. So once you calculate using these formulas, you'll get for 2007 the growth is 21.379%. For 2008 it's 22.727, and 2009 you don't need to calculate because it's a decrease, and 2010 it's 20.95. So my correct answer option here is the year 2008. Let's look at the second question for the set. What was the population of the country A in the year 2008 in millions? So what we need to do here is, I know that population, if we go by this formula, is equal to consumption divided by the per capita consumption for this year 2008. So what we'll do is, we've already calculated consumption for the year 2008. We'll just divide by the per capita consumption, which is 38.7, and we'll find the answer. So the consumption is 108, which is nothing but 238 minus 130. This we've already calculated, divided by 38.7. So this will give you the right answer, which is 2.79 million. So pretty easy question. Let's look at the third question. The ratio of exports to the consumption in the given period was highest in which year? So we've already calculated consumption for each year. We only need to take the ratio. So this is pretty simple. For the year 2006, I have the exports as 114 and the consumption was 72.5. This is calculated earlier. So this gives me 1.57. Similarly, for the year 2007, this would be nothing but 114 divided by 88, which is the consumption for 2008 and 2009. So by guessing from these results, I am sure that 1.57 is the highest ratio. So the correct option is the year 2006. So what you understand from this set in this video presentation is that it is very easy, but it is a little calculation intensive. So you need to practice more and more so that you are able to solve these kind of questions. Let's look at the last question for the set. In which of the given years was the population of the country A highest? We've already calculated population for 2008, which was nothing but 2.79. We'll do it the same way for the other years as well, by just applying the formula consumption by the divided by the per capita income, which gives us the population. So this is per capita income, this gives us the population. So if you calculate, this is the consumption for the year 2007 and this is the per capita consumption 35.2, directly taken from here. Similarly, I've done for the rest of the years, and you find out that for this year 2010, the population is 3.0402 million, which is the correct answer option. So that is all on bar graphs. I hope you enjoyed the lecture.